and talk to you about Warhammer 40k. I want to inform you how one of these games can go through with its army building and several things called battle phases you'll go through with in each game of 40k. Here I have a list of every army you can play as, each being separated into 3 categories, being Imperium, Chaos, and Xenos, with Xenos being the most varied of the 3 groups. On the next slide, we have battle sizes and points. So after you and your opponent choose an army to play as, you will choose one of these 4 sizes, which determine your points limit and command points you start out with points limit being the amount of points that you have to spend on units, with each unit having a different point amount cost, and command points being a special resource that you can use to spend on special abilities depending on what army you have. But each army has the ability to spend those points on rerolls. And with that, we got the end of the army building phase with the categories and detachments. Each unit will have on the upper left corner a symbol determining its type, with each type being HQ, troops, elites, fast attacks, heavy, and flyer, and transport. And these attachments cost CP, which you have from earlier in the slide, which allows you to have this many units in there, which you cannot exceed or have a minimum. As you can see right here on the patrol detachment, we have allowed 1 minimum of HQ, 1 troop minimum. We have a minimum 0 elites, 0 fast attacks, and heavy supports and flyers, with each detachment costing a different amount of CP points. And that's the end of army building. With that, you basically got the basics of building an army down. And now we got battle phases. And once the game begins, you'll go through something called battle rounds. You and your opponent will roll 2d6 each to see who goes first, with one with the higher number goes first or goes last, depending on what they want. And then you'll start with the command phase. The command phase, which is not listed here, it's basically just the phase that everyone gets, which lets you get extra CP, and maybe your army might have special abilities that go off in this phase. Generally, not much happens in this phase, unless you got a special ability, but generally, every army goes to the movement phase after that. And it's pretty self-explanatory, starting out with a normal move. Each unit will have a move amount measured in inches. You just make that move, that's all you do. It's pretty simple, pretty good. Next we got advance, which you roll a d6, and your unit is able to move that much further. But if you do advance, you won't be able to usually shoot, and you cannot charge. And with that, you also can have the option of remaining stationary, which just means you don't move, you don't fall back, you just stay where you are. And fall back is a movement we will talk later back into the charge phase, which is later on. Then we have the reinforcement step, which is right after all that I just said. For whatever reason, you didn't set up your guys on the field, this is where you would set them up now, through a special ability they have in their sheet. Of course, after you set them up, they cannot move, they are there, but they are eligible to roll a charge, which we'll get into later. This phase is usually not important for these listed armies right here, because they don't have something called a Psyker, which is a special unit, and which has special powers called psychic powers, and depending on what army you have, they all know different ones. But basically, when you choose to do one, you roll 2d6 to see if you roll a number higher than the listed number on that power. If you roll higher, the ability goes through. If you roll lower, it doesn't activate, and nothing happens, you failed that action. Next, we have the shooting phase, where you select a unit to select another unit to shoot at, as long as they're within range of that weapon's range characteristic, with each weapon having a type. out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, out of these 5 types. First one being assault, second being heavy, rapid fire, grenade, and then pistol. After you do one of these attacks, you roll a hit roll, which is on their ballistic scale. You must roll a dice. They see if it's higher than your required or equal to your ballistic scale. If it's equal to or higher, you succeed. And then you go to a wound roll against your opponent's toughness, all with your weapon strength. Depending on that, you'll determine your success rate, and you wound them. After that, they roll a save of their save heuristic on their sheet. It's on the right upper corner. If they roll higher or equal to, they succeed, and your attack does nothing. After that, we have the charge step. You roll 2d6 with a unit that must be within 12 inches. And depending how far you are, you have to roll that equal to or greater to that number. So if he's 5 inches away and I'm 5 inches close to him, I must roll 5 or more. If I roll, I move my unit into that engagement range, which is right next to that, 1 inch away. But here, fall back. If they choose to on their turn, they can fall back and move away from me. Otherwise, they're stuck with me. Next, we have the fight phase. Charged units always fight first, and when you do that, the person goes. We take alternating turns, and everyone makes a called a close combat attack with their weapon skill, which is similar to the attack with the shooting phase. Basically the same thing, except it's only one type, and repeat the steps. And then after that, we can call pile and consolidate, where you just move 3 inches to the closest enemy unit, unless you're already within engagement range, which is 1 inch. We have a little diagram right there to help you out. Next, we got the morale phase. You'll usually skip this phase unless you lost any units. And basically, if you lost any units, you roll a dice plus the number of models destroyed this turn, And if it's higher than your leadership skill, you lose a unit. And you do combat attrition test, which you roll 86 for each model you have in that unit. For every 1, you lose a model. Simple. And with that, today I talked to you about Warhammer 40k, and I hope you have a basic understanding of how to play the game, and its battle phases and building an army, and I hope you'll be giving this game a try.